We all have them, favorite stages in the games we love. Often they embody the things we enjoy most about software design. Sometimes it's a certain special effect, sometimes it's the music, and sometimes it's just the killer gameplay associated with it all. The Sega Genesis was the first time I felt like I was getting an arcade experience at home, so I have a ton of great memories with it. Right from the get-go, titles like Ghouls and Ghosts just knocked my socks off. Not just because it was such a potent example of the Genesis power, but also because it played so much like the arcade game on which it was based. It was almost as if someone had shrunk down the 6-foot arcade cabinet to fit inside the tiny Genesis cartridge. The first time I began to climb up that hill in stage 1, I couldn't help but smile, and it felt that way every time I've made the trek since. As time has gone on, some stages become such a joy, I actually have save states just so I can see and hear them for short play sessions. There is a power in the memories they bring. That Christmas morning your parents scored you something you never thought in a million years you'd get. That first game or console you purchased with your very own money. And that brings us to today's subject matter. We are going to go over some of my favorite stages on the Sega Genesis. These are the areas that just make you feel good, and I've got 10 of them for your enjoyment. This should be a nostalgia bomb for many of you, so I hope you enjoy my favorite stages on the Sega Genesis. As many of you know, eSWAT was a game I loved. While it passed easily under the radar in late 1990 because of all the other great titles available, I was really glad I found it. While inspired by the arcade original, it was actually a completely different adventure. It started off a tad slow, but once you got going, you got a bunch of different weapons, the ability to fly, and face some massive bosses. But it was the sewer stage that I enjoyed playing the most. Gameplay-wise, it was fairly simple. As you made your way through the stage, enemy rocket and gun placements would attack, as well as sentient sludge that would actually run you down. But what I really liked the most about this area was the water effect. It was such a simple visual touch, but I always felt it really added to the dank and nasty atmosphere. There was even a nice touch of the boss using the water to submerge and defend itself, coming out at different areas and attacking you in between. I also really dug the music here. While I enjoyed all of eSWAT's tunes, this one had a darker, more foreboding feel that reflected your surroundings perfectly. Let's go ahead and wrap up the rest of this one so you can get a feel for this awesome game. Shadow Dancer held a lot of similarities to eSWAT. It too was released in late 1990, and it was a completely different game than the one that was in the arcade. This was an epic journey across destroyed cities, caves, and even the Statue of Liberty. But man, that bridge stage is what took my breath away. Holy hell, dude, look at that gorgeous layering in the water. It looks like that river just goes on forever, and I'd play this stage over and over just to soak in that one effect. I love how you can jump down to the lower level and really take it all in. As much as I had loved the graphics of Revenge of Shinobi, this one stage elevated the visuals of Shadow Dancer to a level just a notch above it. Enemy placement was easy to deal with here. Just pace yourself, use your mutt to get the bad guys just out of reach, and you can blow through it in no time. Not me though, I'd go super slow so my Genesis could lull me into a trance of 16-bit goodness. Heck, sometimes I'd kill all the enemies and just mess around till the time nearly expired. Of course, this one had more stages and more fun to be had past this point, but this was always my favorite. The only thing that would have made it even better would have been if it were longer. Just playing it here for this capture sends nostalgic goosebumps up and down my spine. Sometimes the Genesis painted such a killer picture, you had to wonder if the developers had sacrificed a virgin to some old world demon god to get the results. That was certainly the case with the Technosoft classic Thunder Force 4. This one looked incredible pretty much the entire way through, but it was Strife that I really got a kick out of. Multiple layers of clouds up high and even more in the water below. The stage felt huge and captured a sense of scale rarely seen in two-dimensional games at the time. I also appreciated the scene transition to an underwater battle, making you feel like you were never in the same place for very long. Add in the perfect musical score, lightning fast action, and the impressive enemy variety, and it was pretty much perfect. Since Thunder Force 4 allowed you to choose your opening stage, this one was always my first choice. Even if you suck at shoot 'em ups, fire up this classic and watch in amazement as the Genesis shows you that just because it was released originally in 1988 doesn't mean it didn't have the power to impress the heck out of you. Technosoft were truly wizards at their craft. Sometimes a game would just open perfectly, setting the stage for a trip you knew was gonna be awesome. That certainly was the case with Batman, a 1991 release in the US based on Tim Burton's cinematic masterpiece a few years earlier. The moment you begin, Batman glides down to the streets of Gotham, ready to take out the criminals and make his presence known. Dark streets extend into the background, leading to some unknown and likely deadly destination. A small burst of rain wets the ground before even more enemies descend on your position. The music was immediately attention-grabbing. You had heard some great tunes on your Genesis many times before this, but composer Naoki Kataka crafted something here for the ages. This is FM sound at its finest, and it accentuates and elevates every part of this experience. Stage 1 was a short and sweet beginning to a great action experience. A time when Sunsoft still made games internally, and they were at their very best for it. If only Sega's Batman Returns had kept the same level of quality. Strider was one of the first games I imported for my Sega Genesis. Even though the Japanese version only came out about 6 weeks before the US release, I didn't care a lick. I wanted it early, I earned the money, and that's all that mattered. While it wasn't 100% perfect, I played it religiously for months, getting so good I could beat it damn near without a single death. It was a short but wild ride across futuristic lands to battle an evil tyrant. Every stage was cool, but it was the Siberian wilderness that drew me in the most. First you battle through wolves and a giant mechanical gorilla before making your way through a mine shaft to the top of a snowy mountain. There you'll quickly descend as explosions try to send your corpse into the abyss below. To end things, you'll climb a giant electrified tower and board an air skiff that will take you to a giant flying battleship. It was arcade magic at home, and there was nothing like it at the time. My history with the original Streets of Rage was memorable for all the wrong reasons. That summer I had broken my leg and needed multiple surgeries. Shortly after, Streets of Rage was released, and it was all I had to lessen the pain. Being stuck on my ass for nearly 3 months meant I got to play it quite a bit, and it was during this time that my love grew for this great beat 'em up. It was pretty much a masterpiece every step of the way. You opened in the neon streets before taking to the back alleys. You could hear police sirens and dogs barking in the distance. The atmosphere was exceptional and was a huge reason why I enjoyed it so much. But it was the ship stage that grabbed me the most. I could almost feel the danger in those multi-layered backgrounds. The music was incredible too, and worth putting on headphones to get the most out of the stereo sound. It was also here that you met the twin sisters for the very first time. These two palette swaps of Blaze were vicious in their throws and jump kicks, especially on the harder difficulty. It's true the second Streets of Rage bested the first in many ways, but there was something special about this game's atmosphere and setting. The power to set a perfect stage and make you feel like you were really in these places was unforgettable. Sometimes a stage looks so unique you can't help but be drawn to it. That was certainly the case with the waterfall in The Revenge of Shinobi. That water is a combination of hypnotic beauty and distraction I can stare at forever. The enemies and their attacks are easily lost against the background, jacking the challenge up until you get used to it. A few jumps need a bit of extra attention as well. Of course, it plays so good that you don't mind a few deaths here and there, nor taking your time to soak up all that impressive Genesis power. The awesome music helps set the mood, an excellent arrangement by master composer Yuzo Koshiro. This area gives way to the rooftops of Tokyo, but the first half was always my favorite. Master your double jump here, or you'll come to regret it later in your adventure. Castle of Illusion was quite a surprise hit with me. I had no love for the character or Disney in general, but there was something about this adventure that was really special. Each world felt unique and there was a beauty and sophistication to its art and animation. Among this treasure trove of graphical splendor was the library, a level that had you traveling across giant books, swinging across lamps, and visiting areas inside teacups and milk bottles. There you'd swim across murky waters battling sugar cubes and make your way across the candy land avoiding gummy dolphins. Castle of Illusion wasn't a long game, but it was its incredible design that sustained its appeal and fun factor. I know many of you shy away because it's Mickey, but give it a chance. Some of you may come away loving it more than you ever imagined. The original Sonic is somewhat of a contentious subject for me. I loved the first half of the game, while that final stretch left me looking for the power button. But I have to admit I still go back to Sonic from time to time to enjoy Marble Zone, both for its graphics and sound. I really enjoyed this one, particularly since it was such a nice change from the super fast opening in Green Hill Zone. But even though it slowed things down a bit, I never felt stifled or stuck. I could always keep moving and always felt there was a way forward that never destroyed the excitement or the momentum of the action. I love that music too. Sitting here writing this, I can still hear it in my mind, as perfectly as if the game was playing right in front of me. Add in the great visuals and it's a potent combination that has me returning to it more often than I care to admit. More stages like this in the later game, and I feel Sonic would have been much better for it. You began the Atlantis Shrine in Castlevania Bloodlines by making your way across sun-stained water while the tide rises and falls over your pathway. The reflection of your battle cast across the water in perfect harmony. Once you enter the shrine, the entire area floods, and you must outrun certain doom, climbing steps and battling enemies along the way. At the top, boss encounters await you. Enemies not quite as threatening as your typical Castlevania bad guy, but no less looking to get in a few easy hits. As the water recedes, you make your way down using floating platforms to stay out of the lethal waters. What is there to say about this stage other than it's one of Konami's best designs? Not only is the setting incredible, but it's also played to one heck of a musical selection, the Sinking Old Sanctuary. Other stages may have more impressive graphical effects, but there was something about your journey here that just felt so very right, so very Sega. Bloodlines is a classic, and this stage right here is a huge reason why. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, let me know down in the comments and we'll do it again. I have many more favorites across many other consoles we can take a look at. A huge part of these old games are the look and feel they present, something you rarely see anymore in the era of high-def visuals and copycat soundtracks. These games still have a power and a draw that really holds up, and for those of us that played them way back then, they still have a nearly endless replay value that keeps us coming back for more. I'd love to know what your favorite stages are as well. Maybe I can do a viewer edition of this topic so we can see the games you loved back then and get them some attention. I'm also thinking about doing a favorite boss fight episode, where I focused on the best bad guys and the many battles I fought with them. It's amazing how well Sega's designs have held up over the years, something that has been lost to time thanks to so many titles never seeing any type of reissue. I may never be able to convince Sega to give them their due, but I sure as hell can do my part to remind everyone that these games were an awesome part of our lives. I'm Sega Lord X, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time. In our last episode, we took a look at some of my favorite stages on the Sega Genesis. We visited the ship in Streets of Rage, appreciated its backgrounds, and fought a killer set of twins. We ran down an exploding mountain in Strider, only to end up on a giant battleship full of things trying to cut us to shreds. We got to see an exotic waterfall in the Revenge of Shinobi, complete with death-defying jumps and flying ninja. We explored Atlantis, a water sanctuary that was guarded by a giant golem in Castlevania Bloodlines. eSWAT took us into the sewers, where an evil terrorist organization was building its secret weapon. We also fought our way across a bridge in Shadow Dancer, as the smooth water below showed off the impressive abilities of the Genesis. And speaking of water, we did battle on the world of Stripe, yet another killer entry in the Thunder Force series. Gotham City Street showed up for viewing, the start of an epic adventure for the Cape Crusader himself. Mickey Mouse was a surprise addition, a stage set in a giant library, which itself contained various different worlds. Even the little blue blur got represented with Marble Zone, an area I always personally loved, but is often seen in a far less glamorous light by its fandom. But that was only 10 games, and there was no way that was gonna be enough enough to do justice to this great system. That's why I'm back with 10 more stages I really loved on the old Genesis. So sit back and get ready for more quality 16-bit experiences. In my previous episode, I covered stages I really enjoyed in both Shadow Dancer and The Revenge of Shinobi, so it's only fair that I added Shinobi 3 to this one. There's a whole lot to like in this excellent title. I mean, it's one of the best on the Genesis after all, but it's stage 4 on the Jet board that I always loved the most. I know, more water, but it's got everything I love in a 16-bit scene. Lots of parallax scrolling in the background, a killer musical selection playing, and of course that gameplay that ties it all together in a perfect package of replayability. There had already been a great stage on horseback that played similar, but this one was faster and had better music. Explosive mines and junk in the water need to be avoided while enemies come out to ruin your day. The second half of this stage has you climbing around pipes and is fun as well, but nothing beat the presentation of this first half. So many great memories here, and I play it often even now. Sonic 2 is perhaps my favorite in the series. It had the looks, the sounds, and the gameplay that make it stand out as one of Sonic's best adventures. And it's full of high-quality stages where any one of them could be featured here. When I think of my favorite, however, I gotta go with Aquatic Ruin. Not only does it feature that incredibly memorable music, but it's just a beautiful stage in general. So much color, so much going on in the backgrounds. It's just one of those areas where you can just stand there for a while and take in all the sights and sounds. It's almost as if someone mixed a few different stages together into the perfect Sonic zone. The gameplay here has a few different paths to explore, some hidden spots, and lots of high-speed sections to enjoy. There are some water sections to slow you down, but stay on higher ground and you can avoid most of it. The encounter at the end with Dr. Robotnik is a slow fight, but classic Sonic, and it's a great end to a nearly perfect stage. Much like Part 2, Sonic 3 is loaded with great moments. It's another one where you could fill up a favorite stages video with just levels from it alone. But it's Ice Cap Zone that gets the nod. Right from the get-go, this is a winning combination of technical design and artistic inspiration. Sonic comes in snowboarding at high speed, shredding it like a superhero on a mission to save the world. The music that kicks in is some of the best in the game, pumping you up and making you want to see this adventure through to the very end. The stages themselves seem slow at first, but a bit of practice and you'll keep moving at a pretty good speed. There's some great line scrolling in the background and the parallax really ramps up underground. The second part of the stage is even faster, which really helps keep the fun factor going strong. The weakest part of this great area are the boss encounters, which are not nearly as well done as the stage itself. No matter, there is enough greatness in Ice Cap's design to carry it just based on the journey alone. Ranger X was a unique Genesis action game that was loaded with great set pieces, visual effects, and some pretty frantic run and gun gameplay. There are a number of great stages here, and I almost picked a few others because this offers up so much. But when it came right down to it, I chose Stage 3, the Jungle. This one is loaded to the brim of great visual touches. The parallax in the trees, the sunlit upper section that is opposite of the darker low section beneath the tree line, birds that fly out when you disturb the leaves, and of course you have air support thanks to EOS, your AI-driven partner. Enemies are pretty much non-stop, so you don't get a lot of time to soak in all those beautiful touches, but so is the Ranger X experience. It's a tough but rewarding adventure that really has no equal on the platform. The developer of this went under shortly after its release, but man, I wish Sega had made a Saturn sequel for it. If there ever was a run and gun that could have survived the 32-bit era in 2D, I think this one would have been it. Streets of Rage 2 was a monster. So many Sega Genesis fans have so many memories with this, it often shows up on best of lists for just about everyone. Whether it was the beach, the ship, the baseball stadium, or any number of other areas within the game, they all were really well done and well worth a nomination here. But it's the amusement park of Streets of Rage 2 that I enjoyed the most. I mean, seriously, let's do a quick rundown of all the sights and sounds you'll see in this one area. You start out kicking butt in the park itself. As you bash heads and punch faces, you'll stroll past carnival rides before entering an arcade to continue the fight. From there, you'll enter a pirate ship that sways back and forth with a warping background. Back out in the park, you'll then enter an alien attraction that looks like something out of a Ridley Scott flick, complete with exploding eggs and some weirdo that has dual Freddy Krueger gloves and a Don King wig. Of course, you can't talk about anything in Streets of Rage 2 and not mention the soundtrack. This one is set to the selection known as Dreamer, one of the better tunes to grace this outstanding OST. This stage is a winner, start to finish. As you all know, Contra on the Genesis was not a linear experience. At various points you could choose your path and get different endings. Add in the incredible audio and visual presentation, and this made for such a great game. Like other titles in this episode, there are a number of stages here that could easily win a spot in this video, but we're gonna go with the stage known as Air Combat. This starts off with some very nice line scrolling effects that transitions you to hanging from an aircraft dodging enemies and shooting them out the sky. But the real threat comes when you blast off into the clouds, your perspective twisting and turning as you hold on for dear life. This is an incredible looking sequence that really shows off the brute force power of that 68,000 in the Genesis. You get some great software related animations that mimic scaling and rotation effects that come off looking spectacular. After a crash landing and some story related conversations, you quickly find yourself locked in a room with a massive boss trying to kill you. It's a short but action packed area that I really enjoyed. If looks and sounds could kill, none of us would have ever finished this game. I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. I'm not a big fan of Super Street Fighter 2 on the Genesis. Oh, it plays great, but I really feel Capcom could have done a better job with this one. The music is a steep downgrade from Special Champion Edition, and frankly, for a massive 40 megabit cartridge, I can't believe they didn't fix the voice samples. As homebrew patches have proven, a proper Z80 PCM audio driver could produce vastly superior results than what was shown here. There's also some simple color hacks out there that bring it much closer to the arcade original. Capcom never really gave the Genesis its best work, and I always felt this could have, and should have, been a much better experience, particularly since it retailed for an astounding $70 at its release. But for all the grief I give it, I absolutely loved Cammy Stage. This bridge scene is set against the English countryside, complete with the northern lights and the night sky above. Old castle-style architecture adorns the immediate area, and of course there is the sexy sprite of Cammy herself. Pyron's recolor of this is even better if you ever get a chance to check it out.
Round 1, fight!
Midnight Resistance was the Contra for the Genesis before there was actually a Contra on it. Developed by Data East and a port of the arcade game of the same name, I came to love this unconventional run and gun quite a bit. I think most of my appreciation for it stemmed from its incredible soundtrack, a booming anthem of just how good FM sound could be. My favorite of these tracks was Hope, Disappointment, and Counterattack, which you first hear on Stage 3, The Waterfall. This one starts out simple enough. Run away from armored vehicles as they try and run you down. Once past this, you'll climb your way up the rock face to a setting sun. There, fighter jets will meet you head on with rocket attacks. Avoid them, shoot down the enemy planes, and move on. Yep, in case you didn't notice, there's nothing outstanding here visually or in the gameplay department. It's the music that carries this sequence start to finish. In fact, I can damn near say that about every part of this game. This was definitely a case where taking away a soundtrack would result in a very different experience. World of Illusion was a great game on the Genesis. The animation and visuals were quite reminiscent of Castle of Illusion, as were some of the stages, but none more so than Stage 4, the Library. Yep, my favorite area in Castle of Illusion returns here with most of the same design elements I appreciated before. You enter the area from a fishbowl, which segued from an underwater stage before it, a very nice touch. Just like Mickey's original adventure, you'll traverse an oversized library complete with various items you can jump into that transport you to other worlds. For instance, you have a sugar jar that allows you to pick up some extra bonus items, a cookie tin that will take you to a candy land where you must battle gingerbread men and gummy airplanes. There's even a really cool cinematic that launches you on a cork into the sky, a surreal moment with great music and a chance to collect some life replenishment. There's even a special stage specific to Donald. It all ends in a boss fight against a witch on her broom, a perfect ending to a fantastic stage. The Turrican series has seen a load of ups and downs for me over the years. Some were great, some were okay, and some I hated. Mega Turrican for the Genesis definitely falls into the first of those categories. This was one great looking and sounding title. Factor 5 always seemed to do quite well with whatever hardware they programmed for, and this one was no exception. You get a lot of great visual touches in this one, but everything about Stage 3 is a tour de force of parallax scrolling, great sprite work, and even some great transparencies. You start out doing battle in the upper atmosphere, jumping ship to ship before making your way down to the stormy surface of the planet. As impressive as the action is here, the music is god tier start to finish. There are multiple selections that are played during each sequence, and every one of them stand out as some of the best the Genesis ever produced. This stage is incredible and even has a number of hidden areas to find, so be sure to check every nook and cranny along the way. So there we are, between parts 1 and 2, I have given you 20 stages that I think are some of the best experiences on the Genesis platform. Since I always loved these stages, this series of videos was very fun to make. So much so, I think I'm going to do more for other platforms. Super Nintendo, PC Engine, Neo Geo, Master System, you name it, and this subject is worth revisiting a number of times. Heck, I might even do a part 3 and 4 for the Genesis here. I'm also thinking about doing a viewer edition of this topic as well, so keep your favorites coming down in the comments. I'm Sega Lord X, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.